to make things a little more challenging or different, we're going to take a low power, make a low power 90-degree left turn. So once again, we want to get in the good habit of always using rotations. Rotations are always a good unit to use because they always give you a sort of universal reference point. And we want to make a 90-degree turn. Now, when we configure turns, the best method to do so is to always use a stationary turn value, direction value, use a stationary power value. However, we change the amount of rotations each turn takes. So what I like to do is, whenever we turn left, I always set this value to -50. And whenever we turn right, I set this value to be 50. So in this scenario, since we're turning left, we will simply change this value to be -50. We also should always choose to use lower values in power. The reason for this being, we don't want to take a turn too fast, for the same way you wouldn't want to take a turn too fast in a car. You're liable to slipping, and it's overall just not a good practice. So we would like to make a low power turn, as the directions also state. So we could set this value to something around 25. Now, a good amount we've found for 90-degree turns, this is sort of a thing that you can play around with, is that we found that the amount of turns to make, rotations to make for one 90-degree turn is one rotation. Now the way we calculated that is simply by testing over and over again. So the best method to find a good turn you would like to do is by simply practicing and playing around with the programming itself. And once again, we would like to end with a break. Alright, so once again, we're going to rename the program, our next program. And we're going to continue working with the steering block, so we can once again simply just drag it over. And now, since we are going to make a left turn, we can just change this value to -50, because we always use 50 to be our turn, and we just change the sign depending on the direction. And turns should always be low power, so we will change it to 25. And the rotation count for this is just going to be 1, and we get that number by testing, and 1 is a good number that we found. So once again, this is simply all, since we want to break at the end, and all we would do is once more just download this over to our EV3 block. Does something seem a little off? You may have noticed that we actually configured the bot to run a left turn. However, the turn that we ended up seeing was a right turn. Now, the main reason that this may have occurred is because we failed to connect the wires in the block in the correct place. We swapped the C and B wires because when we were coding, we assumed that the B was the left and the C was the right. However, as we can see here, they're not connected in the right place. By simply swapping each one, we are able to execute the turn correctly.